Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to have two, soon to be three distinguished guests with us today. And I will introduce them in a minute. And sorry, let me take something before I start. I I know them very well, but the ministers both have an extensive portfolio, so I want to be precise when I introduce your ministries and your portfolio. So we have Minister Ralph, His Excellency Ralph Regenbanu, Minister for Climate Change Adaptation, Energy, Environment, Meteorology, Geohazards, and Disaster Management for the Republic of Vanuatu. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us today. We have His Excellency Dr. Maina Pakafua Talia, Minister for Home Affairs, Climate Change and Environment of Tuvalu. We are here today to kick off the Pacific Climate Mobility Initiative deep dives in Vanuatu, in Tuvalu, and in Fiji and Palau are also starting in parallel. And we will soon have the Permanent Secretary for Palau. So before I give the floor to our distinguished guests, just to give you a quick overview of what the Pacific Climate Mobility Initiative deep dives are. So when we conduct a regional climate mobility initiative as the global center, we normally cover three phases. We start at the regional level, we develop a regional model, we conduct research, and we identify within each region what may be the frontline countries that we prioritize. As a second step, we work with those countries, we look into what is specific of that country, and together with them, we identify two things. One, what could be some of the policy needs for the country? Two, what are some of the projects and programs that could be supported? So the landing point of this exercise is really supporting policy change if necessary, bringing some of our own small quick impact grants to some of the frontline communities, and also helping countries access climate finance. And some countries have a bit more expertise than others already, so we always tailor to the needs of the country. And I just want to highlight one important point. If there's one thing you remember about my introduction of the panel is the Pacific truly leads the way on climate mobility. And so we adapt our approach. So firstly, we will not work at the regional level on the construction of an action agenda, which we normally do, because the Pacific, through its Pacific Island Forum in 2023, has in fact developed and agreed a regional framework on climate mobility. So that's the action agenda that we take. That is the basis, so we won't repeat that. And the second thing, and the idea also in the panel today is to hear a little bit about that, is that the Pacific has in fact taken this issue taken up this issue much earlier than several other countries. And I remember as a young professional in the corridors and the rooms of Bonn in the early 2010s, that I was joining some negotiations, and it was very noticeable that when we talked about issues like displacement, but also other issues like loss and damage, you had many countries talking in the future tense, and the Pacific countries were already talking in the present. And that is reflected in the fact that while gaps may remain, a lot has already happened in the Pacific. So the work that we will do, to a great extent, will be a compilation and making sure that everything is systematically organized and prepared for countries like Tuvalu, like Vanuatu, like Tuvalu, to be able to have an evidence-based approach to their policies and to their programs, and galvanize the support they need. So without further ado, I would invite His Excellency Minister Regenbanu to share a few thoughts about climate mobility in Vanuatu. Where do we stand, and where do you think some of the steps that we could take together are? And one thing I forgot to mention, one element that we will do in each country is also modeling. So we'll be looking at what can we expect in terms of population distribution. with our partners at the UN University. So this is another element that we hope to help the countries with. So, Minister Rogmano, thanks again for being with us. It's a very busy week. Over to you.
Thank you so much, and good day to us all. Minister Maina. Yes, in Vanuatu, we have a very robust climate change sort of administrative policy framework apparatus. We have a Ministry of Climate Change. We were the first country in the Pacific to have the Ministry of Climate Change. We have legislation. We have the National Authorizing Board, which deals with all climate change across all the different ministries, every programs. We also have because of the land tenure system in Vanuatu, like in the Pacific, we have communities who've been moving actually for decades on their traditional land to higher ground and so on in response to climate events, particularly extreme weather events. But I think what we're seeing now, and I want to thank the GCCM for the CCRAF program. For the first time, we're able to get really specific community-tailored interventions with finance for particular issues of mobility that are being experienced by the societies. So, for example, I'll talk about two of the CCRAF awarded initiatives that just happened. We just got awarded this year, later this year. One is a community on an island called Makira, who are living on the coast, basically on the beach, since time immemorial. They recognize the need to move, and they need the infrastructure moved. Simple things like moving the church building, moving the community hall, and they were able to get this funding to do that. And as that happens, we will be able to see how this can help other communities if we were in the same situation. And there are many communities in the same situation. It will help us to develop a policy to work on assisting these very specific case studies of these kind of communities, of which there are dozens in my country. Another one, the second one I want to talk about, is the island of Akam, where they already have moved. The communities already have moved to the mainland. There are now settlements on the mainland on higher ground. But in this particular situation, this is the last bit of their coastline that needs reinforcing. So this will be a coastal adaptation resilience project, planting mangroves, setting up seawalls. It really depends on how the community moves this forward. But this is the same issue we face around the place. So at a macro level, we have the settings in the right place. The big missing gap, I want to say, for the Pacific, for the Vanuatu, just to finish, the big missing gap is how do we deal with the peri-urban areas around our main cities of Port Vila and Luganville. We have people not living on customary land, living in hazardous areas. They want to move, but they can't afford to. This is where the state needs to come in, because they don't have their customary land. In the other communities I was talking about, they have that valve that can release the pressure. They can move freely on their own land. In the peri-urban areas, Vanuatu is one of the highest rural-urban migration rates in the Pacific. Large populations moving into hazardous areas. We need to be able to create a way to move them to basically new areas, which we have to have finance for. The state needs to finance these new areas with facilities, with infrastructure. And this is an area where we're looking for climate finance, but we're also looking for the policy settings that will help us do this in a way that learns from all the experience that has been gained internationally, which we believe GCCM can help us with.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I just want to reflect on two points. One is I generally want to thank you for not only your leadership, but also because this has been a special year for Vanuatu with the ICJ and many other things. And the fact that you are so deeply in touch with the realities of the communities you serve, and you know all the details of our CCAF work, is a great testament to your commitment to the people you serve that I think is fantastic to witness. So I sincerely thank you for that. It's inspiring. And the second thing I wanted to highlight is I find it very interesting that you referred to just now to the fact that people may be moving to hazardous areas where they're at high risk. because this is a topic that very often comes out in our work, for instance, on the African continent. So very often you hear people maybe moving to coastal areas where they're very exposed and that is dangerous. It's not a topic that is spoken enough in the Pacific, because very often the reflection about the Pacific is rather about the habitability and how to ensure that land is inhabitable, which is important. But I think you highlighted a very important aspect, which is we also, and that's why we talk about mobility at GCCM, not just migration, because it's not just about people leaving a place and going to another. We live in circular context where many people from islands of Vanuatu or Tuvalu may be going to other countries and coming back and then going again, or moving towards risk rather than away from risk. So we appreciate opening up the reflection on these important moments. And I know it's a very busy day for you and you'll have to leave us soon. So we thank you and for your time. And I would like to now pass the floor to His Excellency Minister Maina for a few words of reflection on from a Tuvalu perspective. Sir, the floor is yours.
No, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to share some thoughts around the topic on climate mobility. In fact, we have a policy, a climate change policy that speak of what are some of the immediate and long-term strategies for the country. But basically, it does not have a specific strategy for climate mobility. I acknowledge the work that has done by PIF and also with GCCM in relation to climate mobility. Understanding the fact that we have signed the Falipili Treaty with Australia, it does not mean that we are encouraging our people to migrate or to leave Tuvalu, but rather the government of Tuvalu is finding ways, a pathway, a safer pathway to ensure that in a worst case scenario, people have to move within that framework. It's safe for them to move. But the bottom line is that we are not encouraging our people and to move. In 2018, we came up with a outcome document, and that was the first ever outcome document to be developed by the civil societies and communities in Tuvalu, where we invited another Tong, the Honorable Enele Sopwanga, and few other colleagues around the region to participate in this dialogue, and it's basically on migration. The answers that we received from the community was the fact that none of them want to move. So I believe that when we talk about mobility, it's just to ensure that people are move further inland and to provide them further support if needed and to be safe. But when it comes to the context of Tuvalu, the most difficult part for us when it comes to relocating within our islands is the question of land, the availability of land. Because literally, people have started moving internally, but the biggest question is, how further do we have to move inland? Because we are intruding to other people's privacy, we are intruding to other people's land, and land in Tuvalu, you're not allowed to sell land, and that's the only law in Tuvalu that has different islands, because they have different unique traditions to land. It's varied. So every island have their own unique way of land tenure or looking after land in Tuvalu. And that's the only law that gives room and spaces for island communities to have their own says when it comes to their land tenure. So when I say it's difficult when it comes to the land issue in Tuvalu and migration, it is because that every single land on the island belong either to an individual or belong to a kaidasi, a shared owned land, which is owned by certain family members. So it's most of the land doesn't, the government does not have a say in those land. So in order for us to strategize or draw up a strategy for a climate mobility, when people are affected living on this side of the island, this is a safer place for you to stay or to move. It's totally a different case from Vanuatu, Fiji, those bigger countries, because climate change, of course, falls disproportionately on different islands. So it's basically contextually driven. It's driven from each context. Methods and strategies should tie to our local context. But having this initiative, I think it's always important to have those kind of framework. Um, in a worst case scenario, if we are to leave or to move, at least we have option A, B, C, D on the table, rather than having that, the ego of saying that we will not leave, we will stay, we will continue to fight. Of course, we will continue to fight for our survival and our existence, but at least we're being real to ourselves. We have options for our people. Those who are unfortunate to be here and discuss their very own survival strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. And I have a question I would like to ask perhaps to both of you. So we talk about positive adaptation journeys, and the choice of the word journey is not accidental. Is because of course the journey can be how do you say it, figurative, like a journey of adaptation in situ in your island, and of course also a physical journey for those who may decide to move. So my question to you is, so thinking about the journey in place, not those that are moving, what do you think will be the key determinants for youth, the new generation, to be able to remain and thrive in their communities? I had the privilege of spending quite some time on the outer islands of Tuvalu back in April. And for me, it was very interesting to hear such a strong. Those of us working from the Pacific, working on the Pacific, know there is this very strong attachment to your island, right? So, what do you think will be crucial to make sure that the youth that are attracted from the lights of the big cities and traveling abroad, what will enable them to thrive in their communities in the context of climate change?
I think access, first of all. I mean, access to the land, access to the resources you need to make a life, like water, material to build your home, so on. Some of the services we're trying to bring to communities, like internet connectivity, access to education, and there's a big part of a big role for digitization in making these services available much more easier than we've been able to in the past. And then also, of course, you can't ever underestimate the strength of community, the governance system within the community, because we need young people to be there to reinforce these systems that have kept these communities together. And often we find young people get disillusioned when these community governance systems break down. So there's a big role to play in maintaining them so that, and then in Vanuatu, for example, we are trying to set up, for example, a decentralization model that establishes local area councils around cultural areas. So you preserve the vitality of the cultural area by having an administrative unit at that level, with which the government provides people to go and work in the community with a grant, with budget made available so that you can see that development in your own community with your community governance structures. So those are some of the elements I think that make it, we need to put in place to ensure that young people continue to live in their communities and build the resilience and continuity of those communities.
Thank you. I will try and make my response short, because I think both of us have to run to another meeting after this. We don't mean to be rude, but given the tight schedule of our events today. Well, when we talk about the future of our children and the future of our youth, let me first of all acknowledge with great appreciation the efforts made by our youth, not just the Tuvaluan youth, but the Pacific youth, who have made a lot of efforts, putting their energy to ensure that the message get across with no fear at all. And I applaud them for the work that they are doing. Whenever I have 4 children, whenever I look at them, it's difficult to comprehend, because I can't believe that they have to face this existential threat for something that they did not cause. Of course, our contribution is almost next to nothing, but yet we suffer at the expense of other countries. So, in order for them to have a safe future, I think what Minister Ralph have said, pointed out clearly in terms of access, but at the same time, they should be given the opportunity and should be given a seat on the table. Let their voice be heard. And the slogan from our 350 and climate change warriors that we are not drowning, but we are fighting. But I think it's about time that we should speak truth to power. Tell them that we are sinking, but we will never give up the fight. Because we are literally sinking. There are islands in Tuvalu already lost to the sea. The disappearance of the Bukasavili, that is more than enough to tell the world that we are sinking. So as a matter of urgency, I think we need to keep the world accountable, especially the high-emitting countries. So once again, GCCM, thank you so much for the platform. And thank you to our youth for the work that they are doing tirelessly. Thank you. I still remember attending COP. My first COP was COP18. Then COP18, I think I still have, but now I'm start losing hair. After telling how many COPs, 10 COPs or more than 10 COPs. But here we are, we're still fighting. So congratulations and please continue the fight.
So, conscious of your busy schedule, I'm sure there are plenty of questions. But unless it's better, we should close, I guess, so you can go to your minutes, or would you like to take a couple of questions? So if there's any burning question, please raise your hand. And otherwise, the ministers are around and on many panels in upcoming days. Thank you very much. And I join you in thanking also the youth. I see current and former youth fellows of the GCCM. Thank you very much for your time. Good luck for your meetings. We know it's a very busy week ahead. And thanks everybody for joining us today.